Gregg, if you could just set the stage for the last 3 weeks of camp and now heading into the match against Trinidad and Tobago tomorrow night.
Sure, thank you, Michael. I'm always amazed at the work rate and the team cohesion of this group. They demonstrated again in this camp. If you could imagine 3 weeks training extremely hard in a COVID protocol, so we're in a bubble, no contact with the outside world, but the guys were amazing. And the attitude, the effort, the commitment to training and improving each and every day was certainly there. And what I said today is the work is done, and we're prepared, and now it's time to go out and perform. And I think that's the reward after 3 weeks of hard training. So tomorrow we face a regional rival in Trinidad, and we're looking forward to playing a good game and building on what we worked on in the last 3 weeks. In terms of the group's fit, ready to go. Of the 25 players, only 2 players will not be participating. That's Julian Araujo, who came into camp with an illness, and the focus really became just getting Julian back to full fitness and working him back. And we did a lot of individual work with him, and it ended up today where he could participate in team training. So he's in a really good spot, leaving camp in a great position. And the second player is Josie Altidore, who was training really hard, training really well. Unfortunately, picked up a slight injury 2 weeks into camp. And then from there on in, he just worked his way back, and he was also in full training today. But with the transfer window looming and the game being tomorrow, it's a chance we didn't want to take with Josie, so he will not be participating. Other than that, we're fit and ready to go and excited to play Trinidad.
Thanks, Greg. We'll get started with Paul Tenorio.
Thanks, Michael. Greg, over the last few camps, I feel like you've had a chance to see so many different players from so many different leagues, and probably not too many players you haven't been able to work with that are in this pool. Do you feel like you have as good a grasp as you can have on this pool right now going into this really important 2021? And just to follow up on something you just mentioned about Josie, you mentioned the transfer window looming. Is there interest in Josie, to your knowledge, in this window that you're trying to make sure he doesn't pick up an injury for it?
Yeah, so I'll address the first part. Throughout the last 3 weeks, you wouldn't believe the amount of calls I've been getting from clubs about different players, and you guys are part of that speculation, but you see it as well, and you hear it. So we've gotten calls about a ton of players. Josie's another focus of transfer speculation. I don't think it's my place to go into details of that. I think that's a place for his club and for Josie. But there have been a number of clubs interested in Josie, as well as other players in camp. In terms of the player pool, we feel like we have a very good handle of the player pool, although there still are some players that we haven't gotten to see yet. An example would be, Aaron Johansson, who I think is a good example of a guy who's performed pretty well, and we haven't seen him in camp. Julian Green's another guy in the second division in Germany. We haven't seen him, and he's having a good season. So there are a few players that we haven't seen, but overall I think we have a very good handle of the player pool, and we're just using every touch point now to strengthen the group as we prepare for this difficult year.
Next will be Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Ron.
As you look at preparing the team for the events later in the year, would it be hurtful, and how much would it be hurtful if there was a Major League Soccer lockout, then those players wouldn't have any competitive matches in the next few months?
I think we addressed this a little bit in last week's conference call. And this is something between the Major League Soccer owners and the board and the front office, and obviously the players' union. We're hoping that the league starts on time, but if it doesn't, we'll adapt. That's what this new reality is about. We've been adapting for the last year and a half, and that's just something you get used to. Part of it is we know that our real games of importance start in June, in terms of the ability to win trophies. We'd be hopeful that they would be well underway by then and playing by then. and then we have the Gold Cup in the summer, where another opportunity, and then World Cup qualifying. So, we're hopeful that the players do get playing, and we'll just have to wait and see.
Next will be Stephen Goff from the Washington Post.
Hey, Greg, thanks for your time. How would you say Paul Arriola has looked throughout this camp? His first extended time in quite a while after the injury. And along those lines, the Swansea City talk has been going on for a bit now, and the deadline's coming up. How has that maybe affected him or preparations for you?
It hasn't affected Paul at all, and he's I think one of the guys. He's a top performer in the group. He's just consistently performing at a high level, and he's been doing that since day one. We're very pleased with his December camp, and I think he pushed on in this camp, and again was performing really well, very consistent throughout camp. We're excited to see his performance tomorrow, and he's certainly prepared. One thing I've been impressed with Paul. He's another player that I've gotten a number of calls about. And, it doesn't faze him. He just does his job, focuses on today, focuses on getting better today, and then he does the same thing the next day. And, it's really, really impressive mentality from him.
Next will be Doug McIntyre from Yahoo.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, Greg. Following up on Ron's question, if there is a stoppage, Greg, how do you adapt? Are you thinking about doing a camp? Are you... what's sort of the contingency? I'm sure you've talked about it. If to make sure your guys are training ahead of the March window, ahead of Olympic qualifying. And second question, just curious what the nature of Josie's injury is. Thank you.
So in terms of the preparation and what we'd be doing, there's a couple different scenarios. The first scenario would be getting them to camp early in preparation for the European fixtures in March. The second scenario would be taking an all-European team in March. The plan is to go to Europe. We've done that already due to COVID, and so we can certainly adapt and do that. My intention would be to bring our strongest team, and that certainly includes players from Major League Soccer. But we'll just have to see how that shakes out. I know the guys are focused right now. They're fit. It would be nice if they can build on that fitness with their clubs and then join us in March. But we'll see. We'll take it day by day. In terms of Josie, again, very, very minor strain. Nothing that showed up on scans really, and it was mostly a precaution thing. And again, the amount of work he's done off the field, rehabbing this one-on-one, has been really impressive. He's looking strong, looking fit, and can certainly play a part of the game if we needed him to.
Next will be Jeff Carlisle from ESPN FC.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, Greg. Obviously, you've seen Andres Pereira in previous camps, but certainly this camp gives you an extended look at him. What have been your impressions, and has there been anything that over this course of time, given the extended look, has kind of jumped out at you and made you appreciate him a little bit more?
He's a competitor. First and foremost, he competes. Very good ground cover, very good mentality, open to learning, takes instruction really well, competes in every single training, has a very consistent level of performance. We've been impressed with him. For a young player, he's been a big surprise from December and January camp. And I think, we're excited to see him in the game tomorrow because he's had a good 3 weeks of camp.
Next will be Ivan Skolarcev from SBI Soccer.
Greg, I wanted to ask you about your center backs, Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman. They started in your first match as U.S. coach, and now they're expected to start tomorrow. What have you thought of just how they've continued to kind of evolve in your system? And obviously they're competing against each other in that pecking order. You have John Brooks, who's obviously really highly regarded, but those two are competing, and they're also very close. What have you thought about that competition? And unrelated second question, as far as style of play, a couple of the guys, Walker and Christian, talked about how there's more emphasis on high pressing, and Walker mentioned how you guys want to hunt the ball more and maybe learn some lessons from matches against teams like Mexico and Uruguay who could keep the ball. What would you learn from those matches, and how do you see the team kind of evolving in terms of adding those elements to the overall game plan? Thanks.
Uruguay didn't keep the ball. I mean, if we want to really talk about detail, I think we had 60% possession that day. So, Mexico does a good job of pressing. They did a good. They historically have done a good job of pressing against us, and for us, I think it's about just evolving, having a very stable mid-block defending structure, to now working on a high pressing structure where it gives us an alternative. I think that's the idea, is to become less predictable. The idea is to be able to control the opponent with and without the ball, and that certainly high pressing gives us the opportunity to make teams uncomfortable. And so that's part of that. But we also like to work in a mid block at times when we need to control the opponent and prevent some penetration. In terms of Walker and Aaron, I can't say enough about the two players and their leadership, their consistent leadership. They both have really good attitudes. They both work hard. They both set the tone, but also know how to have fun, know how to laugh, know how to keep the group motivated and keep the group laughing. So they've both been instrumental in that. They're both part of the leadership council in this camp, and they really do a good job of setting the tone. In terms of tomorrow's game, part of the emphasis in general was it was a part U23, part full national team, and because of that, we're going to start with Miles and Aaron. They will be the two center backs, and it's really an opportunity for Miles to get his first international start. He's done really well in camp, but also develop and prepare for Olympic qualifying. That's a really important event for us, and it's his opportunity to show that he can also lead a group and lead from the back.
Next will be Jonathan Tannenwald.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Greg, for taking the time as always. How do you size up the goalkeepers that you've got in this group? It certainly seems from the outside that Matt Turner's probably at the top of the list. Where do you put him at this point relative to your European contingent, and then where do you put Matt Friesen and JT Marcinkowski?
So, again, with the objective of being to develop and move both groups along, we felt we made a lot of positive strides with the goalkeepers. JT and Matt have really developed in this last 3 weeks in terms of understanding the game model, their game understanding, and then, really worked hard with our goalkeeper coach, Aaron Hyde, and done a great job. Matt is ahead of those two. Matt Turner, he will start the game tomorrow, and I'm excited for him because this is a classic example of a guy just earning it, and he earned it by great play on the field last year and then having a really strong camp. And we're really supportive of Matt and hoping he'll have a great game tomorrow. And the important thing for Matt is to play his game. He's gotten this far by being himself, and I'm sure he'll do it again tomorrow.
Go to Emily Olsen from SiriusXM.
Hey Greg, thanks for taking the time. You've now had 3 camps in 4 separate countries during this COVID time. I'm just curious from what happens off the field, how these guys bond in camp. That's obviously changed. How much do you have to then implement maybe more team building or those conversations on the field? Because what I assume, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's limited interactions when compared to previous camps.
Yeah, Emily, I think there's limited outside interactions, right? So it's more difficult to take the players to outside events. We went to NASA before. We've spent time with the military before. We've done a whole bunch of cool events outside of our camp. But now it's about more internal. We have a lot of fun with the groups. We're in pods. We sit at the same tables for 3 weeks. We have competitions between the tables. We're able to go out and rent out movie theaters where we're there alone and able to see some inspirational movies and talk about that. So there's still time for these events, and there's still time for team building. It's just getting a little bit more creative and keeping it in the bubble.
Next will be Daniel Nora from Univision.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Daniel.
I would like to know if you feel that the lack of activity that they haven't played a game since, I think, more than 400 days now. Do you think that can affect your expectations on the friendly tomorrow?
When you say that, you mean Trinidad?
Yes.
Yeah. I feel bad for Trinidad. I feel bad. I feel bad that that we're faced with these type of complications, and as a result, a lot of development, a lot of the programming has suffered. Look at our youth national teams. We've been basically dormant for the whole year, and that's not good. We need to keep our youth players developing. We need to keep challenging them with international competition, and right now it's just difficult. So, these are all things. These are all, I think, fallout from the pandemic and things we're going to have to get used to and start adapting to. But in the case of Trinidad, it's a small country, a country that's shocked the world by qualifying from playing in the World Cup, and has done a great job over this last decade. It's unfortunate that things like this happen, that they can't be playing games. But now I know they have a busy 2021, and it will be nice for them to kick off with a game. My expectation is that they will have some fitness issues. I think that's normal based on them not playing, the domestic league not even being active. Because of that, we've agreed to a 2-minute break in the middle of the first half, and I think that's something that makes sense for player safety. And we're going to go out there and compete, though, and we expect them to do the same.
We'll go to Ryan Talmadge from Goal.com.
Hey, Greg, obviously you talk about Josie being out, and while that's obviously bad news for Josie, it sort of does open the door for someone like Daryl or Jesus to kind of step in. Now, those two obviously don't have the experience that Josie has, and it's a much different opportunity for them. What are your expectations from that forward position, and what are some of the things that you're going to want to see those guys do now that door has kind of been open for them?
So Jesus has made his debut last year in January for us, and we thought he did an excellent job. He's continued where he left off this camp. Has done a good job, and so we know what Jesus brings. Very good dropping down, very good linking up play, really good starting defensive pressure, and then in the penalty box he's very calm and can finish his opportunities. Daryl is also very strong, very physical center forward. He's been working really hard on his movement inside the penalty box, working really hard in understanding how we're pressuring, and then how we use him in build-up. So both of them have done a great job. They both will play tomorrow in the game. So it will be, we're excited to see what they can do.